everybody. My name is Nancy. I am a product management coach and advisor. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Diana Chen, who is a product executive. She's been in the industry for
over 2 decades.
over 2 decades, and she has helped over 100 PMs at least with career growth and their job search.
Thank you for that intro, Nancy. So yes, as Nancy mentioned, I already have a couple decades of experience in product management and have managed individuals of all levels up to director title and help them either, develop their careers as my direct reports or giving guidance to those that I mentor or coach outside of my company even. And so here today, I'm trying to share some tips that would help from my years of experience helping others.
Yeah. Wait, let's talk about how we met. We
Yes.
met on the Korea platform. This is is it a mentoring platform?
I would say it is more like career coaching platform, yes.
Yeah, so we met on that platform. It's a great community where we are able to support one another, whether it's coach with coachee or just like coach to coach.
Yeah.
That is where I was able to meet Diana. Okay, so let's talk about job search advice.
Yes. So let's talk about two specific areas for job search advice. The first one being mindset. I think it's very important for job seekers to have the right mentality and stay positive as they're going through the job search journey, no matter how long it may take. And with the current climate where there's so many mass layoffs, it's not surprising that it's taken most longer than usual to land their next job.
Right.
And that means during this long journey, you inevitably may face many challenges and rejections. And it's understandable that that may, take a toll on, your stress level, your emotions, but certainly that should not show during an interview. So it's really important to make sure that you stay positive, because how you show up, it just, how your mindset does affect how you show up in an interview. And I don't know if people can tell, because sometimes they may be so focused on answering and responding to interview questions, they may not catch their body language and tone and their word choices as they're responding, even in this virtual world.
What is an example of either word choice or body language that people use when they're not in their best self? What happens?
I would say an example is, I've been on the hiring side, right, where I've seen candidates struggle to even clearly convey their thought because they're just so nervous. They really want this job and it really shows. But when you can't articulate your thought clearly, it unfortunately does show up as a red flag. And then it also makes it harder for the hiring manager to connect with you and envision you in that role if you don't show up with confidence, right? So for instance, you're using a lot of ad libs like or I think, or I may do this. That doesn't sound very confident, right? And they want to know as a hiring manager that this is the right person that I want to hire on my team, who can get things done and know what they're doing, with especially if it's a more senior role. Like, if you're going for an associate product manager role or like a new entry-level engineer role, I think there's a lot of lenience on understanding like, oh, it's okay that you don't have that confidence yet. But when you're trying to go for senior level, principal, director, so on, confidence really matters. How you communicate and influence through your storytelling all matter.
And can you talk about why confidence matters? So my take is the interview itself is a stressful situation, yes. But once you are on the job, you will also be put in stressful situations, right? And so the hiring manager wants to know how you are, how you show up in those situations. And I feel that is why it's important to give the interviewer that signal that you are able to handle yourself under all kinds of different situations.
Right? Yeah, spot on. That's what I would say for sure. You will also be in stressful situations at work. For instance, at one of my past employers, there was an unfortunate password breach at some point. And I was put on point as the lead PM. And certainly it was very stressful working around the clock, trying to figure out what's the best solution. And we're kind of racing against time to roll something out for the customer. And I was actually the most junior to be brought in out of the first 10 people in the know. And I actually built a reputation for myself in the company by always being calm. and I think that's a great way to show that you're confident even in stressful situations is if you could stay calm, because then, you know, as a leader, people are more willing to listen and follow you if you're not frantic and unsure of a direction. You want to be able to motivate others to follow you towards the same path, right? So that's where confidence and your mannerism and your attitude all matter.
Yeah, and I love what you said about staying calm in the midst of chaos. And that happens quite often on the job. And when you are a product manager, doesn't matter at what level you're in, it's a leadership role. You are leaders. People are looking at you. People are looking to see, oh, how does the PM feel about this situation, right? So even when we're feeling frantic and just, you know, like nervous inside, we are responsible for kind of like
setting a direction.
Exactly, because you have a team of people like looking at you. They might not be asking you directly, but they're paying attention, they're observing, right? So in this case, staying calm or appearing calm in the midst of chaos is an important element of the PM job as well.
Yes, for sure. To your point, like implicitly, they're looking to you for direction, right? And so it's important that you are very clear on which path to take and why, and expressing that in a very confident manner, even though you may be leading the team towards a path of ambiguity. But that's something that you have to, you know, thrive in. As you grow in your career, you're going to deal more and more with ambiguity, all the way when you reach like CEO level. They're dealing with like tons of ambiguity all the time. And it doesn't mean that you know 100% facts that this is the right approach or the right solution when you go so high up. But in order to be in that position and held accountable for the results, like you have to be assertive and know why you are taking a whole company in some cases down a particular path, right?
Yeah, so let's tie it back to the interview advice, right? For all of those reasons above, interviewers are looking for signals that you are that leader that they want to put in that PM role. And that's why how you show up, how your energy is so important in these interview settings. So the follow-up question I have is, when we're going through such difficult time, how do we stay positive? What tools do you use that have worked for you in the past?
Yeah, so there's a few ways I've tried to stay positive. I think one way is more, at a personal individual level, like do something that you enjoy to kind of take your mind off of stressful situations, whether that is like listening to music, going for a run, whatever it is, like that would help you de-stress and take your mind off of what is triggering your stress is one way to help you improve your mindset and stay positive. I think another tip of mine is to surround yourself with positive people. And it is, right? Like when you're surrounded by positive people that think and say things that are positive, it has that network effect and it grows on you. And then you would also say and stay positive, you know, and think positive most of the time. So I think those are all, you know, interpersonal aspect as well as like a external influence aspect important for you to consider.
I love what you said. Identify your triggers.
Yeah.
I think for a very long time, I didn't know what would trigger me. I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But then I realized, oh, there's a pattern. Like every time X happens and I react a certain way. And I found that when I started to pay attention to those triggers, I'm able to catch it before I go crazy, right? I'm able to say, okay, I know this typically triggers me. I'm gonna call it out. And then that kind of just like calms my nervous system down just by default. Just by identifying the trigger, I'm able to just be more composed.
Yeah, I agree. I think a very important intrinsic trait is self-awareness.
Yes.
And so when you're aware, you tend to introspect more often, and that's when you will identify triggers if you've like set aside time to think about it, right?
I love that. It helps with everything, with personal life, with professional life, certainly during job search, that self-awareness piece
Yeah.
Cannot be underestimated, I feel.
Correct.
Let's talk about your second advice.
Yeah, second advice is around how do you take this mindset and get into, especially earlier in your job search, pipeline building, right? So cold applying to hundreds of jobs won't really land you that next job, especially in this competitive market. What I've seen a lot of people have more success doing, including myself, is relying on your network. But I think what often people do by default is just think, oh, I only have my first connections. And if they're not like me and have, you know, so many years of experience and built up like thousands of people in my network, then they may not have first connections at the companies that they are interested in applying for.
Right.
So a second, you know, connection should be something that people consider and leverage that's being underutilized today. Now, it's true that second connections are less effective than a first connection because those people don't necessarily know you.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have a strong enough connection with your first connection through that intro, they would at least overcome the benefit of the doubt and willing to listen to your case. And especially if that second connection happens to be a hiring manager of the role that you're targeting, then you can get in front of the hiring manager directly rather than going through recruiters, like resume screening, recruiter screening, and so on before you get to the hiring manager.
So, assuming that you have been someone's second connection and that you agreed and you felt inclined to help, what made you feel that way? Like, how did the candidate phrase their request to you when you're the second connection?
So in the cases where I've been inclined to help, usually the first connection would state like, you know, why they think this person is someone I should meet and is a good candidate for the role that I'm hiring for.
Got it. So they need to kind of put in some thought in framing their request. They can't just say, hey, Diana, please refer me.
Correct. And so, even when asking for an intro to someone for a referral, like you should do the job of writing something like a cover letter, kind of just building your case of like why you think you're a fit for the role, and giving that as a prompt to your first connection to help make that intro to that second connection. Yeah. Basically do the work for them, right? Don't make them write the letter themselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's so helpful because everyone's busy, right? If they have to stop and think about what to write, they might not do it. But then if you just say, hey, send this one-liner to Diana, that would be so helpful.
Correct.
Both for the candidate also and for your first connection as well.
Yes, exactly.
When you haven't been paying attention to relationship building, and then all of a sudden you're trying to ask for help, how do you, first of all, what is the right mindset to have in this type of situation?
Yeah. So ideally, you're not in a situation where you haven't been keeping up with your network and suddenly you're in need of a job and you're reaching out to your network, because people can tell, right? And so it's important to continuously maintain meaningful connections as you network. So, whether it's colleagues that you've gotten, direct relationship to work with, catching up with them every once in a while. And it doesn't even have to be super frequent, right? I'm not saying like, oh, you have to connect them on a monthly basis or anything like that. But to your point, you need to nurture your relationships so that it doesn't feel like out of the blue, a stretch where you're just suddenly saying like, hey, it's been years that I've, talked to you, but can you submit a referral for me? It's like, okay, feels a bit, awkward and disingenuous. Like it's important to maintain those relationships, having virtual coffee chats or in-person get-togethers every once in a while. So when there is time and need, like they would be more than happy to help you, right? And in terms of even reaching out to the second connections, I've had cases where it's not that I'm in a job search mode, but I just simply admire certain leaders in the industry that I want to get to know on a personal level. And so I've also asked for second connections, like kind of intros, so that I can continue to expand my network. And that's what I mean by building a pipeline, right? It shouldn't be, oh, suddenly I'm in a job search, so now let me think about who do I need to network with? Who do I need to ask for referrals? But it's more, hey, these are the relationships I've been maintaining. And these are the people I think, I have the best connections with, and maybe they can help guide me towards my next role, right? And so it should be a very open conversation around like, hey, I'm in the job market. This is what I'm looking to do next. And are you aware of any opportunities that match what I'm looking for, right? So it's not, oh, can you refer me? And oftentimes people are more than willing to just like, refer you. And then the other thing is like, keep in mind that relationships is a two-way street, right? It's a give and take. So when you do have an ask, think through what could you give in exchange. And it doesn't have to be, immediate, but something that whether you give upfront or give, back later, like you keep that in mind.
I love what you said about relationship building. And I forgot how it's typically framed. What was that called? The piggy bank? that
Yeah.
you want to
Keep
deposit.
deposit. Yeah.
Yes,
Coins. Yeah.
yes, you want to deposit into that piggy bank so that one day in the future you can make withdrawals.
Yeah.
Ideally, right? That's the ideal,
Ideally. Yeah,
right?
ideal situation. But when you're in a ruckus,
Yeah,
like, in this whole mass layoff thing, it's understandable sometimes you haven't yet built that relationship, but you shouldn't be afraid to still try. I
yeah,
think, you know, having the courage to still cold call and reach out to people have surprisingly worked sometimes. Of course, lower success rate,
that's how I
but
met you, actually. I just sent you a random email.
correct. Yes. Like, and throughout the years, definitely plenty of people use like LinkedIn emails to like email me, whether I'm hiring or not.
Right.
And depending on whether I have the time, I would choose to connect. Right. And so it's worth trying because I've always said, like, if you don't try, it's 100% failure rate. But if you do try, there's some hope of success.
Absolutely. And I also feel this is where intention um, get factored into this. So my intent of reaching out to you, Diana, is really just a genuine desire to get to know you and get to connect. And sometimes that if the intention is not right, it can come across one way or another. Um,
Yeah.
so I ultimately believe that as long as you're genuine about something and you need help, people are inclined to help, especially in this climate today.
Yes, I
That's the
totally
silver lining, I feel.
yes. So it kind of ties to the earlier tip around, mentality and mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like if your intent is sincere, then it'll come across that way and people would be genuinely willing to help. But if your intent is really like self-focus, that
Yeah.
would also come across that way. And then that's where people may be a bit more hesitant to help you.
Anything else you want to add to just close the loop on this discussion?
I would say, it's a tough climate, and now being like a mental awareness month. Oh, sorry, mental health awareness month.
Is it the
It
entire month of May?
I believe it's the entire month of May. Yes.
Oh,
I think it's important to take care of your mental health, right? I know it's very stressful times for especially people who are on a H-1B visa and they have a deadline in which they can still stay in the country.
yeah.
So, some that I've talked to have even expressed like they don't even feel like they have time to take a break from job search. But I think it is important, even if you need to take just 1 or 2 days, not staring in front of a
Right.
computer, applying to multiple jobs for your own mental health, right? And
Definitely.
once you are able to reset and be in a more positive state, hopefully, better things come out. Staying positive sometimes have some sort of higher force and karma to it where it does drive you towards more positive outcomes.
That's beautiful. I was advised to treat the job search as a job. What does that mean? It means you start work and then you end work. That means there's a start and an end. It's not a continuous thing,
Yeah.
right? And so it helps to have a time box. So I said, I'm
Yeah.
gonna work on my job search and I'm going to close my laptop at 5. Like that's when I get off of work or something
Mm.
like that, right? So you're not always surfing LinkedIn. You're not always, I don't know, thinking about it. But I get it. It's really hard.
It is really hard. And so that's why I think it's also important to do job search not alone, because there's just so many people out there that are searching at the moment.
Yes.
And so, you know, job search in a group is a new concept.
Tell us about the group session that you're running. Is it next week? The week after week?
Yeah, on May 19th.
May 19th.
Yes, I do have a group session for those, especially those who have been recently laid off, but you know, even those who are in the job market and are not getting much success are welcome to join. But it is going to focus on the topic of like ensuring that you have the right mental health state to go on this like potentially long journey of landing your next job, and then all the various tips and tactics along the various life cycles. So we talked about a little bit about pipeline building, right? But after you're able to build the right pipeline and get referrals, there's a lot of things that happen afterwards, such as like the actual interview and the offer stage and so on. So the group will focus on that, and then hopefully through this session, you can meet others that are in a similar situation, find that support that you need to get through tough times, and and reach your next move.
Also, you never know who you meet in these groups, right? Things could just happen in a magical way down the line. You never know. So I guess to wrap this up, I would ask everyone to just keep an open mind, even when you don't feel very comfortable doing X, Y, and Z. You never know how the future turns out for us. And like people say, things happen for a reason. We might not understand it now, but looking back one day, we will know what we learned. And if I were to look back to the tough moments I've had before, I could probably confidently say I grew from it, I learned from it, and now I'm a stronger person because of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's important to stay resilient, and hindsight 2020, you always learn that you've grown through these situations. And a lot of people have gone on to be successful, even after a layoff situation. I think back in 2008-ish, like there was also, you know, financial crisis and a lot of layoffs then. And a lot of people actually shifted careers and became entrepreneurs and started their own startups and companies, and are very successful fast forward to today, right? And so even now, as I talk to some people, some have decided not to necessarily stay the same course that they originally were on and pivot to new areas to explore, and loving it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'm going to put the link to Diana's session somewhere, description box. Go sign up, because it will be it's a very supportive space. So there's no judgment, right? It's just nothing but support and faith and intention to support one another during this difficult time. Thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you, Nancy.
Bye.
Bye.